Okay, we are now recording the July 13th, 2018 Small Business Accounting Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. My cable's not lining up. Friday the 13th, huh? You're right.
Yes, indeed. So I want to start with one small announcement, but to me it's a big deal because I have clients that this will be super useful for. Bill.com is releasing international payments. So you
Really?
Yeah, isn't that cool? I don't know a lot of details about it right now. I just saw a notice from Bill.com that it's coming up and they'll be rolling it out to certain clients that they think could use it. So I'm hoping my international client will be one of the first.
So I saw that announcement come across. I didn't see any details either. I mean, so is that going to be, you're not going to have USD accounts if you're overseas or I mean, I know you said you didn't have much other details. Do you know anything like that?
Well, they said that you can make in US dollars, like from the United States, like you would an ACH payment.
Right. So if you have a vendor overseas that you should be able to pay them, except of course the am I still there? I broke up.
You're here. You're here.
The web designer that I was using was in Serbia, and apparently we're not allowed to do business with Serbia. And I had all of it.
Fact that we're not allowed to do any kind of bank transfers with anybody that we're in.
Yes, I had a heck of a time paying her, but
I would imagine it would be Canada first, Europe.
Yeah.
I'm hoping South America is in that mix. That's what my guy works at. So we'll see. I guess each country will be different.
Well, I know a colleague who works out of Canada, and they just have a very horrible time paying and getting paid, from United States customers. So
that would be awesome if that could work that way. Okay, Sarah, you look like you froze, but
I know. Weird. Can you hear me?
I can.
Weird. Okay, well, you don't need to see my mug anyway. Well, there's a bunch of updates this week. I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. Like, is Hubdoc on your list to talk about?
No, what's happening with Hubdoc?
They just announced, you know how when somebody emails in a document, you don't know where it came from, when it came in, nothing? Right. I knew they were working on it, but this is huge. It has an audit trail with who emailed it in, when it came in. Yeah, it's great.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, they just announced that this morning, I think.
Cool, awesome. So also, QBox desktop is now on the QuickBooks App Store.
Right.
Let me see if I don't remember what I had up. Oh, that was that. Okay. This is
So the website's like, what is the website?
Here it is. And I did put the link in chat.
Oh, you're already there. Look at you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can't get over there. My
faces in the way.
Faces are in the way. And it's not letting me move it. I don't know why.
Okay, so that's desktop.apps.com. And we need to load them up with reviews.
Yes, indeed. That's going to be what I do tonight after we're done with this.
Yeah.
We love QBox. So we want to give them tons of good reviews.
Yeah.
And I'll put the link also in our group so we can do that too. So, next subject. Is this what we wanted to talk about, Ernest? Where are you?
Was it Ernest or was it Dwayne?
Dwayne?
Oh, sure. We can talk about it if you want to.
Yeah, I'd like to chat about it.
You called it the Wayfair sales tax?
What?
It's the Supreme Court's decision on the.
Dennis, are you up on this?
Yeah, South Dakota and Wayfair.
Oh, yeah, Wayfair.
Yeah.
5-4 decision in South Dakota versus Wayfair was met by cheers from brick and mortar retailers who have long believed that the High Court's previous rulings on the issue disadvantaged them, as well as state governments that are eager to replenish their coffers.
Right.
So anyone that is selling online, and that would be Wayfair,
Any of us online.
now have to pay sales tax. No
Well,
matter.
I have to think about all the different states. The states have to determine how they're going to deal with it.
That's correct.
And then the problem is, okay, say they say, well, you're exempt if you have under 200,000 in sales, and you go, oh, phew, my little gift shop is, nowhere near that. But then it says, or 200 transactions.
Wow.
So you get somebody that sells $5 products
Yeah, like the
and
dollar
make
store.
$1,000 and they're liable.
Yeah. You got it right. That's the hook.
That's the hook. So what do you think, Dwayne? I mean, I've been reading from some experts that are like, if you're really small, just lay low and let's let the big dogs fight it out as far as how we're going to do this, because the cost of compliance will bankrupt people.
I agree, but I think this is another way for the states to make money.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this whole discussion as to whether or not you have significant economic presence in a state is really kind of up in the air, because a lot of the states have different definitions of it.
Yep.
Nobody has come to a common definition on that particular issue, so it makes it really difficult. Because if you have a client that's doing business in a lot of different states, that means you have to look at each state's definition to determine whether or not they have the economic presence in that state.
And you have to track, are they tracking what their sales are in all the different states?
That's
It
correct.
boils down to technology. It boils down to the statistics. And, a lot of my little gift shops, you've got, something really simple, and
Right.
they're not paying for the fancy dancy software that's tracking.
How much is in,
They're
which
gonna-
state, right?
They're going to have to do it or get a knock on their door. Okay.
What
Right.
about,
So then the argument is, okay, so if they catch me and I had, 201 sales and if the sales were $1,000, what's the penalty? You start, I don't know. Here's the thing. I look at South Carolina and how difficult it is to file a South Carolina sales tax return.
Right.
With, I know streets in Beaufort where one side of the street is one rate and the other side of the street is another rate.
That's where it gets wild.
And so the time it takes for me to file a South Carolina sales tax return would blow your mind. So now I step back and go, holy mackerel, you would have to have Avalara
That's right.
or TaxJar.
Right.
Now,
right.
a little bitty person online may not be able to afford Avalara and
That's
TaxJar.
right.
So boom, they're out of business.
There you
They
go.
decide, I'm sorry, I can only sell in my state or whatever.
Right. Right.
But didn't Intuit just pull in sales tax functionality?
Say that again?
Didn't QuickBooks just pull in sales tax functionality for QBO?
Yeah, but you mean based on the delivery address?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
destination.
they bought a whole company to deal with sales tax.
Okay, yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to hear about. But
Well-
you have to do it at the point of sale, that's for sure.
Well, it used to be in the state of Washington, there's a thing called the streamlined sales tax, which was a consortium of states trying to get together, have some common definitions. And the state of Washington used to be source, where if you bought something in one city, you'd pay that sales tax, but now it's destination on where it's being shipped to.
Right.
And so I can just see it's a real nightmare. In the state of Washington for QuickBooks Desktop, they used to have a an add-in that you could have, because like the state of Washington, every freaking city has their own different sales tax rate, you know. And
That's the same in many states. That's exactly the same here in Pennsylvania. And Greg, you got the same thing over there in California.
and they keep changing it. I mean, it gets updated and changed, and you know.
And there's no way that a regular business person can keep up with all that information.
Or their poor little accountant over here.
Without some sort of software or something telling them the updates.
So also, aren't they going to have to, you know, when you get a sales tax audit, I mean, it used to be they go to the files and look for, you know, invoices where you didn't pay any sales tax, trying to find use tax. So now, are they going to have documents to justify what they paid for the sales tax for out of state sales?
Yes.
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 And also, I heard some talk that they might make some of this retroactive in some states.
Oh my
Oh boy, that'd be lovely. Yeah, I read that too. Can you imagine? You know, let them sue me. Jeez.
We'll have a revolution on our hands then.
I know. Well, and I think that's the point. You remember when the law came out that we had to do a 1099 for everybody, including every gas station?
Right.
Oh,
Yep,
yes,
yep.
yes.
And so clients would say, what do I do? And I said, well, okay, my due diligence as an accountant, you have to follow the law. As your friend, wait and see.
Don't.
And sure enough, I knew it wouldn't fly. I knew that it just had to blow up, and then they reversed it.
Well, I would think it takes some time for the states to roll out these different programs, wouldn't it?
I don't
Exactly.
see a reversal happening, but I do see things starting to come together and start having some common terms. At least you have to know what Nexus is.
Yes.
Right now, we're talking about products. What happens if it's service?
Well, here's the thing. I sell downloadables, which are not taxable here. And
I think they are in the state of Washington.
I think they are in the state of Washington. So it's like, is it based on who paid the bill or who paid the credit card bill or who ordered it? It's not delivered anywhere. So is it sold in Washington or am I selling it in Georgia?
Yeah,
I don't want to know.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's just it's an interesting time. So I don't mind paying sales tax. I don't mind collecting sales tax, but they have got to not just destroy small businesses with
Well,
the
like,
compliance and how to do it. I mean,
I mean, they're trying to pass a law like that in California, and can you imagine all the different services that are being provided for in our society? All those people would have to try to keep track of all the services and what they paid. And
the guy mowing the yard. Yeah.
Yeah.
In some states, the guy mowing the yard, I think it's Pennsylvania, isn't it?
Yes. 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 Lawn mowing is taxable in Pennsylvania.
Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, come on.
I know.
So do you-
I agree. I agree.
I can just see the lawnmower guy just whipping out his phone and some app and send an invoice, you know.
Slap a little 8.5% on that lawnmower fee.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Well, the lawnmowers mowing the grass is taxable, but if you're cleaning up the yard, that's non-taxable.
Really?
What?
So you gotta
Yes.
keep track of your.
How do you change that? I mean, how do you?
So you have to split invoice, right?
Well, he has
Yeah.
to keep track of his
You
time.
don't
You
invoice
got to
for
keep track
everything
of
all at
the
once.
two different services that he
Is
gets.
it
Something-
touching a piece of machinery? Is it touching the machinery that makes the difference, or?
It's mowing the grass versus cleaning up.
Well, no, they don't mow my grass. They just clean up. They just blow. Half the time they're just blowing the pine needles off the grass.
Now, I don't know how the lawnmower people work here in Pennsylvania. First of all, they have, well, I'm going to say I-9 issues because we have a lot of people that they bring in and they use as helpers, and you know they don't necessarily.
Some sort
You're
of cash
laughing. I'm trying to be careful.
transactions. Paid in
They got
cash.
all of that issue to deal with.
Yeah, if you're paying cash, it didn't happen, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. Well, every other.
On this personal, I mean, they're
Yeah.
yeah. It's not company. We're not paying a company.
Well, you know, like in the state of Washington, the regulatory burdens were getting pretty extensive. For example, they have a paid sick leave. City of Seattle had a paid sick leave policy, and the state of Washington decided to adopt it. And so now you got to keep track of the paid sick leave, and it's just a nightmare. And they don't really enforce it, but if they audit you, then you get caught. Then
That's the problem. If you get audited and you get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Just
I
don't-
think
just
I'm
don't-
gonna retire and move to Disney.
There you go. That's the answer. And then
All right, you guys, I love you, but I gotta go.
All right, Sarah. Take care. Have a good time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have fun.
Thanks.
Sarah.
Bye.
So here in Pennsylvania, where I live, I'm like at the corner of 3 states: Pennsylvania, New Jersey,
Are you kidding me?
actually Delaware too. Right. So what if the guy goes, a mile down the road and he's in Delaware, not taxable? So it's kind of a little complicated here. I've created items for each taxable versus non-taxable, and then you've got PA taxable versus non-taxable. So yeah, it's real complicated.
Now, are you filing sales tax returns for 2 or 3 different states, or just one state?
Just one at the present time.
Okay.
The one that I'm working with does not work in New Jersey, thank God.
Yeah, they have tough laws in New Jersey.
They do, they really do. But Pennsylvania is no piece of cake either.
No, so, well, if they're getting after lawn people, that's a tough state.
Those poor guys don't make a whole lot of money anyway. So, yeah, I'm gonna, when I brought up the sales tax, Avalera had an advertisement there. Smart move on Avalera.
Well, they've been into it for a long time, and they must have anticipated that a lot of this was going to happen.
Oh yeah, they've been planning for it.
Yeah.
I wonder how this works for Uber.
Wow, that's right.
That's
How
going
about
to be interesting.
How about if you cross state lines?
Yeah, I can
I
only
think-
take you a mile. I can't take you that mile and a half.
Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but in California, they got after Uber to look upon the Uber drivers as employees versus independent contractors, right?
That's always been a fight that we've had here. In fact, my life before bookkeeping was in the delivery world, and so I'm still connected in there, and we've fought many hard battles about whether or not we can continue to classify our drivers as independent contractors versus classifying them as employees, and they are very much going back and forth. We had a long time where we thought we were pretty successful, at least in the way that we were set up with the way of handling independent contractors, but even that is now being threatened because of the ABC, the 3-prong test that is now being pushed. We used to follow the 20-point
Right.
where you would kind of grade yourself on whether the person is an employee or not. But now this B prong is kind of insane out here right now, because the B prong is whether or not they are integral to your business operation. So I tell
How do you define that?
I tell my clients that my interpretation of that is if you're a construction company and you need to pay a bookkeeper, that's not integral. But if you're a construction company and you need to pay somebody to lay the tile on a roof, that's pretty integral. So, but again, I also make sure that I have them consulting attorneys and whatnot to make sure, because I don't want them to get in trouble. But that's the way that I interpret it. if you are a retail store and you have a plumber come in, that doesn't seem to be an integral portion of your business. I forget the exact terminology of it.
So that would also depend on what type of store and how much you're using the plumbing. You know what I mean?
I think you might be getting a little too
Complicated.
complicated there.
If you're a building maintenance company, and you need to have plumbers that are not on payroll but on sort of like on staff, on call every day, how would you handle that?
Oh my gosh.
So the B prong is that the worker performs work that is outside the usual course of the hiring entity's business. So what is the usual course of mine and your business? It's bookkeeping, it's data entry, it's answering phones. It's not, the usual course of my business isn't gardener. It's not the lawyer. The usual course of my business is not those things. So in our delivery industry model, the usual course of our business is getting crap from point A to point B. And so we were utilizing what we were confident were being called independent contractors because they were their own businesses. But now that they're adding in this additional wrinkle, our hiring entity is in the business of getting crap from point A to point B, and that's the function that they were performing, and so they would fail that B prong of the 3-prong test.
Is that that's a state classification?
Well,
as opposed to like the IRS?
So it was on April 30th, the California Supreme Court issued its long-awaited opinion on Dynamics operations versus the Superior Court. And it basically, so it's a state ruling, but it's the ABC test is a nationwide sort of classification system.
I know in the state of Washington for like independent contractors, especially if you're doing construction, if you don't have a license through L&I, you're going to be deemed to be a employee, and that they should be on payroll. If they catch you, you could be liable for back payroll taxes. And so I have one client that was using this one guy. It's like about $500,000 in business, and the guy's L&I license had expired. And I said, you better watch out if they ever catch you,
So you have to watch your contractors and their licensing.
Oh yeah, you ought to have a due diligence to make sure that they're licensed by the state. I mean, at least check once a year to make sure that they've got their license is renewed and hasn't been canceled. Because otherwise, from a L&I standpoint, I mean, they get a more stringent contractor classification than the federal government does. And I think that they share data, L&I and the IRS. So
I'm sure they probably do.
So you could
happy to share data.
You could be susceptible to an IRS follow-up too.
Oh.
All sorts of ways to get caught.
So Dennis, a person who's working with, say, consultants. Let's say it's a consulting group, okay? And one guy is a consultant. He's a professional consultant, and if he's not licensed with the state of Washington and he's working with the group and they're on a big contract, then he'll be deemed as being a employee versus a independent contractor.
That's like, when I talk about construction.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where they have all the people getting hurt.
Oh, right.
So they're looking at, yeah.
I always make sure that when I notice one of my construction clients adding on a new vendor, that they're but they're kind of thinking, hey, I got to make sure that I get.
They need a checklist. They need
I'm
this,
already
they need
asking
that,
for the
they need,
W-9 anyway.
right?
I'm
Boy,
already
I would
asking for the W-9 anyway. I remind them you need to make sure that they've got insurance, you got their license on file.
Boy, I would have an attorney drop some sort of engagement letter where they're
With a
making the
checklist.
affirmation that they have employees that that they're complying with employment laws. Also, I mean, with state of Washington, Illinois, supposedly if you have a contractor, you're supposed to be at least getting assurances that they're they file their own tax returns and are.
And I don't see that how that is your responsibility whatsoever. That makes you a policeman for them.
Yeah, they're just trying to get more money out of you. Trying
right.
to
Well, yeah.
shake you by the heels.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty treacherous if you're not, for the unwary. And even if you're knowledgeable, there still can be little things that you can't keep up on. It's like.
Well, it's almost imperative that you try to stay on top of stuff because you're passing these rules all the time. New rules.
Yeah, and making sure you tell your clients too, because they may come back and say, "Well, why did you tell me about this?"
Right.
Exactly.
Not that they ever do that.
Guy, right?
Yeah, not that they ever do that, right?
Right.
And
not that they would comply with it, but at least you had to tell them, right?
So then you have to tell them in writing.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I went to a county meeting. It was on identity theft, but we got into sexual harassment and some of the stuff that's going on with the Me Too movement and man alive. The documentation and the
it's wild out there.
The training and
good to stay at home.
Or
That's not helping now too.
Just
Even
not
at
having,
home, they're catching us with those taxes.
just not having employees.
Yeah. You have to be very careful these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, I'm going to end on that subject. Time just flies by when we're having fun.
Yeah.
So we'll see you all same time, same place next week.
Okay.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.